Look at that brisket. It's so soulful and rich, and like the beef flavor, the broth does remind me of seolleomtang, right? Which is a traditional Korean bone broth soup. That like undergirding the entire bowl, like immediately reminds me like this is not really Japanese style ramen. There's a clarity to the broth that feels like it came from a Korean soup, not from a Japanese base.
현재 전 세계에서 유행 중인 한식에는 불고기, 치킨, 비빔밥, 김밥 등 여러 가지 음식이 있습니다. 그 중에서도 한국의 라면은 간단하게 먹기 좋은 간편성과 뛰어난 맛으로 해외 사람들에게 사랑을 받고 있는데요. 하지만 이번에는 인스턴트 라면이 아닌 직접 만든 수제라면이 해외에서 인기를 얻고 있다고 합니다. 이러한 유명세에 해외의 어느 음식 전문 웹사이트에서 한국의 라면과 일본의 라멘을 비교하기 위해 직접 뉴욕에 위치한 한국 라면 전문점 취재를 나왔다고 하는데요. 영상 함께 보시겠습니다.
In Japan, ramen is traditionally a freshly prepared food served in thousands of restaurants. But in Korea, ramyeon is almost always a packaged instant food. And Jeju Noodle Bar in New York City is trying to change that. And what they're doing is basically taking ideas of instant Korean ramen and making it into something that's well-plated, delicious, using amazing pork and amazing bones. This is something that I have never had, and I'm really excited to try it. In Japan, they have a culture of ramen restaurants, but we don't have that in Korea. I mean, most Koreans eat packaged ramen.
Correct. We try to use a natural ingredient to make that flavor, give that depth of flavors from many different products.
So what are those ingredients, those natural deliciousness ingredients?
Let's say it could be the bonito powders, which is like fish powders, and then it can be the mushrooms. Certain bones, give that depth of a flavor, especially meat flavor. Certain bones give that gelatinous flavor. Certain bones give that round flavor.
What do you think distinguishes Korean ramyeon with Japanese ramen?
A lot of times, they try to give a more depth of flavor and they incorporate more flavor with animal fat. Which means it's a lot of times when you eat at 11 at night, the next day you go, oh.
Yeah, I feel gross.
Yeah. So every time your mom's making seolleomtang or gomtang in your house, she always skim the fat, right?
Right. So it's cleaner. The broth is much cleaner.
And then we always clean the bones, make sure there's no impurity in the broth. To give that other depth of flavor, we use a natural oils, herb oils, vegetable oils. We make everything specially seasoning supu. There's in-house. Only thing we don't make it here is a noodle.
You get them specially made for you in a specific way. Like what is
correct?
that?
The noodle that we use now, it says no one actually use in New York City now. It gives that instant noodle texture. So how we make our ramen here is basically you have a basic seasoning, gochu seasoning, and then there's the salt seasoning and soy sauce seasoning. And then you make three different broth, which is we have a pork, beef, and chicken with a bonito broth. And then finally you cook the noodles and actually you mix all things up and then comes the ramen.
So we got this one. This is called a fish coop. So it's gonna have a little bit of the bonito flake, but the base is going to be a chicken ramen. And you can immediately see how the fat from the top of the broth makes these noodles glisten. So beautiful, appetizing. I think that's just what I want from a chicken ramen. It's not too fatty. Chicken flavor is very clear, distinct. There's a richness where you get the chicken to coat your palate. The noodles feel like instant noodles. They're a little nicer. They have a little more substance to them. They don't taste like they're coated in plastic. They do a very nice job of soaking up that broth. And what's really cool is that there's this herb oil that's just dabbed on top, and that gives the whole thing a little bit of freshness. It's truly fantastic. It really does taste like a well-executed Korean-style instant ramen. The freaking pork belly right here, I mean, you will never get anything like this in instant ramen. the soramen. This is so cute. I mean, it's so small. Feels like I'm having like a jjigae almost. A Korean stew, a traditional Korean stew. You can see here that there's the pieces of the wagyu that are kind of shabu-shabuized. They're not fully cooked, and they will eventually cook if you leave them inside. Perfect. I mean, look at this egg. It is gorgeous. Exactly how you would want a freaking ramen egg to be. Look at that brisket. So soulful and rich, and like the beef flavor, the broth does remind me of seolleongtang, right, which is a traditional Korean bone broth soup. That like undergirding the entire bowl like immediately reminds me like this is not really Japanese style ramen. There's a clarity to the broth that feels like it came from a Korean soup, not from a Japanese base. And look, there's so many noodles. I like the use of the garlic chips. This one, I mean, this is the one he said that really was inspired by Shinramen. And to me, Shinramen it's the quintessential Korean instant ramen. Such a freaking avalanche of flavor. It is fatty and spicy and meaty, and then you got these like little hints of almost unnecessarily like just iceberg lettuce for a little bit of crunch and freshness. And then this white kimchi, man, it is truly good. There's this almost like striking acidity and like just a gentle sweetness. That's such a nice contrast to the broth, because the broth is really heavy. It's almost like a nuttiness to it. The broth just sticks on it, adheres to it, almost like pasta. Oh, yeah. I think this is my favorite bowl. It's fantastic. It's so good. It's so rich. My palate is going, where's the powder? Where's that like fake MSG thing going on? And it almost wants it, but it's not getting it. It's getting something that's much more, it's filled out. Like all the ridges of flavor, like they're filled in. It's almost like the difference between MP3, like a crappy MP3, and like the full quality audio.
이번 영상은 여기까지입니다. 구독과 좋아요, 알람 설정 부탁드립니다. 앞으로 더 좋은 영상으로 찾아뵙도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.